tell you that.
He's very modest.
So yes, that's an amazing achievement. Well done, really. And I was being a bit sarcastic, but I'm aware that, you know, as we get older, you know, it does get a lot more difficult to get stuff inside this grey matter of ours. So yeah, it's a great achievement. Well done.
Thanks very much.
Cool. How are you doing, Justin?
Very well, and you? I see you went on a nice camping trip recently, or fairly recently.
Yes, I did. Yeah, we actually did a couple. We were lucky, but it was all the pre-COVID trips that we had to tick off. So they've all been ticked.
Awesome. Yeah, we got to do that Kalahari one someday. It's got to find the time.
Just put it in the diary.
Yeah, easier said than done. You can't do it over December. It's too blooming hot.
Is it my signal that's bad? Alex, what's your signal like?
So far, so good. Yeah, I haven't experienced any problems.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Simon. And while I'm here, Brian, congratulations, man. Jeepers.
Thanks.
Yeah, congrats, Brian. Awesome stuff.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, it's just Simon, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks, too.
I've said congrats on your third son, eh?
Yeah, it's my third. Eh?
So you're going to keep going till you have a girl?
No, we're stopping, thanks, sir. We're done. We're definitely done, thanks.
Don't stop yet. You've almost got a back line.
No. The golf 4-ball's complete. Eh?
Better stop buying balls now, buddy.
Yeah, well, I don't even know why I'm mentioning golf. I hardly play anymore, so maybe I'll have to wait a couple of years until they're old enough.
Yeah. Lee, you in the tell, eh?
Yep, in Umhlanga. And it's bloody freezing, I think. I see Ben sitting there with no jersey on, but sure, like it's not yet 20 degrees, so it's freezing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. You should come to Warm Kloof.
Yeah. It must be the only warm day in Kloof today then.
Ben, it's Kloof. Kloof.
No.
Where the dogs go woof.
It's Kloof.
Ben, were
where
you...
in Kloof, the dogs go woof, woof.
Exactly. Ben, were you guys all okay with the floods and, you know, at home offices, that sort of thing?
Yeah, we didn't have water for like 2 weeks. So that was a bit hectic. Yeah. So, but other than that, we were all good. Yeah. And you?
Yeah, same. We luckily, you know, at home we're fine. And we've been lucky, actually, we've had water and power throughout. So,
sure.
Yeah, very lucky, because some of the stuff, you know, even just around the area is quite hectic. Never mind what's happened in worse off areas.
Yeah, I've got a bad quality network here. I'm not sure why mine's bad and Alex's is fine. Alex, is yours all right? Are you freezing at all?
No, not at all. Not so far. Yeah, I'm all good, yeah.
Dirk, are you in St. Francis or you in PE?
No, I'm in the same office as Alex. And so.
Okay.
Alex, which network are you on?
CCSA 3. Or CCSA.
I don't even.
Yeah.
Let me I'm going to swap you. Okay, yeah, this looks better.
Morning. Good morning.
Morning, Russell. Okay, I think we need to get started. Morning, Ferdy.
Good morning. Morning, guys.
How's Bloem today?
Well, it's kind of cold. We reached the minuses, yeah, that's really cold.
Wow, okay, cool. Yes,
Yeah.
very cool. Okay, guys, I think let's get started. So, just a reminder that if there are any ideas on subjects that you'd like to discuss in this forum, just, put them on the group and we'll have a look at them, because we want to keep things relevant and current. So what we thought we'd chat about today was, the kinds of questions that we can ask clients, specifically in the discovery process. And then not just, what are some of the questions that some of us use that work well for us, but also where, when do we actually ask these questions? Because obviously, especially for those who are new to, kind of the lifestyle planning concept, a lot of these questions are very different to the traditional stuff that we would ask, which is really about, product and markets and things like that. So, and again, as I said, this forum is about learning. So there's absolutely no right or wrong. And, what will work for me, may not work for Ben in the same business. He might have a slightly different take on it. So, again, there's no silly answers. There's just, ways of learning from each other. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start and just go around the room. And I'm going to start with Frank. And I'd like to know what are just one or two of the questions that you ask to get personal with clients, and then also when in being and how soon do you get onto that. So we don't need to go through the whole process. Just like, do you have it set? Is it fixed? So when do you ask these questions and the questions that work for you? Off you go, Frank.
Morning, everyone, and well done, Brian. Awesome achievement. So, yeah, I think like everyone else would also say it's a case-by-case scenario. But in general, our second or third meeting will be the discovery meeting. And our question is very soft-based. What I mean by that is just a client to connect with the client through getting to know the client. So we don't really talk numbers at all here, or even goals, etc. But through the questioning, we've got a set of questions. And I think it was Simon who gave us his process a while back, and we based our questions very much around what Simon already developed, and we just added a few extra questions. So we do have a set document with questions, and it relates to occupation, values, family life, education, a little bit of finances, not numbers, but sort of just to understand the client on finances, their lifestyle, travel and recreation. So in the meeting, it's all the time, or most of the time, it is husband and wife. And every time so far, when we had a couple in a meeting, a lot of stuff that comes out, which the husband and wife don't even knew, or didn't even unpack themselves in a way, and also haven't even thought about. So So it is a lot of softer questions to make the client think. So one or two clients will sometimes say that, yo, we're getting deep today. So, but it is more to get to the psyche, I suppose. And the questions is developed around that, Dirk and team. So to ask you one or two questions, like I've just highlighted a few, so I'm just looking on the right-hand side of the questions. It's very much, there's a lot of questions in each of those categories which I've just mentioned, but it depends on how the conversation goes with the client. So it's a very much a conversation to unlock the conversation and to engage with the client in a conversational manner, just regarding who they are and getting to understand them, etc. When we speak about numbers, that will only be the next meeting. So the discovery meeting is very much a softer approach, if I can call it like that.
Okay, great. And any particular questions that you ask, like any one, like a good question that you would ask in every single meeting that works well or that gets the clients talking?
Well, I think not really. All of these questions in here, I think it's what is important for you. You know, what is it that you ultimately want to achieve in life? So I think that is probably, a lot of clients can't answer that. And then we start chatting about that. So I think that is probably the most pertinent question, is what is it that you guys would like to get out of life while you're here? And then build it from that, because yeah, I think most of the time the husband and wife is aligned, but sometimes they're not. And to let them understand that they're still very much individuals, but also acting as a couple. So I think that was probably it, Dirk, yeah, to say, you know, what is it that you would really like to achieve in life? And then unpack it. Okay, how do we get there? Have you achieved it? Haven't you achieved it? And how can we help you to achieve that?
Okay, great. Thanks, Frank. Russell, you're next on my screen.
Okay, I'm muted now. Yeah, I think so. My process, which is also a discovery meeting, in that meeting, I think my perception when it comes to dealing with clients is you kind of put yourself in the client's shoes. So if you think about it, you use it to your advantage, where clients are coming into that meeting, you know, they have multiple feelings, where they might be feeling intimidated because they think, you know, you're the top finance professional and they don't want to seem dumb or silly asking questions, or, you know, because of like the reputation our industry has, you might have clients coming in there expecting you to suddenly just start talking policies or products within that first meeting. So how I get the clients really comfortable in the first meeting is, I also call it as a form of like meet and greet, but I usually also get to know them about like, you know, what do you do for a living? And then I use that as an analogy of like, okay, great. If you're a doctor, I just want to show you that likewise, like you're a doctor, if I had to do your job, I know nothing about medicine. And if I had to be in your shoes for a day, I wouldn't know where to start. And likewise, I don't expect you to know anything about finance. And then that also kind of like eases them. I find with a lot of my clients, their shoulders relax. You can see it in their body language. And then to also get them to open up within that first meeting and kind of build some form of trust and rapport is, again, it comes back to like the client's perception of like you as a financial advisor or planner, is that most clients think, you know, if you're a financial planner or professional, you know, you've got your life is perfect. You got all your ducks in a row. Your finances are perfect and to a T. You've never had any finance problems. So what I usually also do is like, I share a bit of like my background, my story regarding my parents and how we didn't get access to like good advice, to kind of like build that relatability of like, I'm just like you. Yes, I'm a financial planner and I know about finance, but I'm just like you. And just by doing those two things, it breaks down a lot of the, I would say, the walls or the guards that a lot of clients have. And then, yeah, then we go into like deeper conversations. I like to get a good understanding of like, you know, I ask the client, you know, so what has your experience been when it comes to like money to this point, you know, good or bad, whether it's from previous advisors or family, you know, what is your past experiences? And then also like, why are you working so hard now? in your current job? You know, where do you want to go actually? You know, why are you working so hard? What is that money supposed to give you in the next coming years, or in 10 years or 20 years? And then obviously those are my own questions. Then it obviously goes into a deeper conversation with the client. And by that time, the client's kind of fully opened up with me and they're willing to share, you know.
Great. So Russell, what I really like about what you're saying is that you're trying to put yourself in their shoes. So and I've heard this a lot the last while, is about meeting clients where they are. Because as you say, you know, they no matter how smart they are in what they do, generally they, compared to us, they're ignorant when it comes to finance and products and things like that. So I think that's really important, making them feel comfortable, and like you say, see them drop their shoulders. That's fantastic. And also something I really like is, and it's tricky because I've been called out on this by other advisors, but I see where they're right, where we can overdo it. But sharing a little bit about yourself to get them to share more about them. So in other words, you kind of you're creating okay, like there's something familiar between the two of you. So I think that's really important. And obviously it's difficult because sometimes, you know, if you share something personal, you're exposing yourself. So I think for me, it works really well, especially, and it can be something simple like, okay, let's just say they're divorced. I'm divorced and I'm remarried. So like, I know what that's like, trust me. I don't, but the danger is to go too deep into it. So I think it's important. I think that sharing to get people to feel more comfortable with you, because now you have something in common. I think that works well. So thanks.
Yeah, I think just on that, it depends also. You can kind of read the client and what topic or what you know, life situation they're going through, and whether it's to share or not. Like an easy, simple one I share that's not too deep is whenever clients come to me about investing, I tell them my own personal story, which is true. But like when I started investing before I got into the industry, I also made the mistake of like, I thought I was investing and I was putting my money in an interest account at the bank. And I only got like 200 Rand out of like after 2 years. And then like sharing that of like, oh, you know, if I knew what I knew now, I would have known what's the difference between investing and saving, you know. And yeah, I think you just have to gauge on the client, and yeah, you don't have to go too deep. I think it's just, again, coming back to the client's perception, because I think we perfect with finance and there's nothing wrong with our finances, but just showing that is showing that, you know, okay, he's also human like me, you know. But yeah, gauge it on the client and the client you're dealing with.
Great. Thanks, man. Alex, you next.
Cool. So I think by now everyone kind of knows our process and how we do things. But in our discovery meeting, I mean, we kind of got the get to know each other, then the goal setting meeting. But I'm going to just go back to two questions that we ask in the more getting to know you part that I think, well, I certainly get a lot of value from. And the first one is, actually spoke about this question to Dirk the other day, and that is, what brings you here now? Because there's normally a reason that a client or prospective client has reached out to you at a certain time in their life. So it's always interesting to know what is it that's brought them to you now. It could be a changing jobs, a divorce, a marriage, buying a house, or whatever the case may be. But normally there's something that brings them to you now. So I really enjoy that question, and it gets them talking quite openly about their situation without you having to ask too many questions. And then the second question that I always enjoy asking as well, it's normally the question that follows it, is, you know, should we work together? What is your expectation? Should we start working together? And I think by asking that question, it also creates, you know, expectations. It's in the question, but you can find out what exactly they're looking for, and if you are able to, you know, provide the services that they are looking for, going forward. So it's a way to create a boundary. It's a way to open up. But yeah, I think by asking those two questions quite early on, a lot of conversation, a lot of good material can follow from that. So yeah, those are the two questions I enjoy probably asking the most.
Thanks, Shah. Actually, I listened to a podcast the other day. Obviously, I've been driving a bit. With Brendan Fraser. And that was one of the powerful questions that came up was so the client would be talking about what the issue is, like it's retirement. I'm worried about retirement or this. And then the question would be, okay, that's great, but why now? And generally, you will find that something has happened that's made that client come in and see you or come and talk to someone. So I think that's great because you, as much as we want to get, in discovery, we're trying to get the history, we're trying to understand where they're from, where they are now, and then eventually where they want to go. Generally, there's something that needs to be addressed. And I think obviously you can't address every problem right away, but I think to be aware of it, even if you take and say, okay, look, we're going to deal with that in the next meeting or whatever. But okay, great. Thanks, Alex. Simon, you're next.
Yeah, I always start the same way. So asking them what exactly is their main concern for coming in to meet, or if, for example, you were passed on their details and it's more of a sort of introductory coffee meeting or something. Like Alex said, you ask them if there's any major concerns now, and just by hearing the question, you'll know if you will cover it or not. So like we went through that questioning session with June, and if it is something you will address, then you can just reassure them and say, look, we have many clients who have that issue, and we kind of follow our process where that will be one of the things that will be addressed. Yeah, and then I've like Frank said, I've got like a question bank, so it's quite a lot, and by no means I ask all these questions in every meeting, but from time to time I'll just review the questions just to make sure that that I do ask the various parts. So it's like 50 questions. Well, I'm very happy to share them. But they're broken down into different sections. So general discovery questions, although quite broad, I quite like the ones where you start off and say, like, what is your first memory of money? What do you like to do in your spare time? Where did your parents grow up? What kind of work did your parents do? I feel like you just by answering those questions, so the family questions especially, to get an idea of what shaped their perception of money. Some people grow up with having the impact of their parents' decisions affect them either to do the same thing or do something completely the opposite. And just by asking them the question of what their experience has been helps to try and get an understanding of what what that person is all about. Then we've got, what does your typical day look like? This one's very much about just trying to find out, where they are now, whose lives and lifestyles are impacted by your financial decisions, financial history, who do you currently consult when making financial decisions? Have you ever had any experiences with other financial service providers, good or bad, that you may want to tell me about? So I think a lot of people, for me, that's quite an important one, because people always seem to come into a meeting with baggage. And they're usually there for a reason. The fact that they're entertaining a meeting means that, maybe they're not particularly happy with who they're either with, or they're not with anyone because they've had bad experiences. So I quite like to uncover that and just sort of see if we can't solve that immediately by saying, I understand why you've had a bad experience, or this is sort of very prevalent in the industry, but there's lots of good people out there, that type of thing, and we do things slightly differently. And then where do you want to be? There's a whole list of questions there. So I try initially get an idea of who they are, what they're about, where they are right now, and then start to say, okay, where do you want to be? So questions, there's a whole host. I won't bore you guys with it, but there's just really two halves. The first half is getting to know the person, understanding why, how they've got to where they are. And then once I have a good understanding of that, moving on to saying, where do you want to be? I just want to read one or two other ones that I thought was quite useful. Yeah, okay. Well, I can share these with anyone who wants to have a quick look. But I find it very conversational, and often, like I said, in that first initial meeting, I try and do all these discovery questions, sort of just post having given the presentation to. It kind of happens, obviously, in conversation before you do necessarily your formal presentation, which we've all shared with each other. So just general conversation. This is often coffee chat. But there's many questions that once you've done the presentation and you sort of commit, you can feel there's a bit of a commitment, then I'll go into sort of more deeper discovery questions.
Okay, and then are you separating your goal setting from your discovery meeting?
Yes. So that will be second once they've had a commitment, and then we'll go into goal setting. Yeah? So goal setting will be the next phase, and if they are happy to give us their information at that time, or go through goal setting first, it's fine. I think often what happens with goal setting, you don't quite need the information yet. There's a lot that I've found that happens when you go through goal settings and they start to see what they need or require for these things, and then you start to say, okay, now that we know what you want to achieve, what provisions have you made? And then they start to see, oh wow, okay, this is what I've got, this is what I've got. I'm falling drastically short here, but it's the goal setting that's uncovered all of that in the first place.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay.
Justin?
Morning all. Yeah, so just to kick off, obviously, as you all know, I took over from Daryl, who retired a year ago. I have not been through this questionnaire. He had everything set up when he left. The last year has been about dealing with existing clients and not new clients. So I haven't been through the process. I have the process in front of me, and it is a lot similar to what has been said already. I did sit with him when he developed this, and we came up with the questions, and I think a lot of the questions came from this forum, maybe Dirk and June and Shannon with Old Mutual Wealth. But if I need to maybe just start looking at bringing on new FP clients so I can take them through the process and see what works and what doesn't work. But there's a bunch of questions. I know not all questions are for all clients. Some of the questions are dealt with in the initial meetings, which is more about where they are, who they come from, what they do, the easy to answer questions. And then in the discovery meeting, you start dealing with more of the difficult questions, their money memories, their what they enjoy about life, what gives their life meaning, those kind of more hard to answer, I would assume, but a lot more thought needs to go into the answers from them before we would then take them into the goal setting, so we've got a good understanding on what kind of person they are and where they want to go. So unfortunately, I haven't been through the whole process myself. I don't know what are the good questions, what are the bad questions, but I need to maybe Courtney and I need to sit together and ask each other questions so that we can figure it out before we actually do it with a potential client. But yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Great. Justin, listen, thank you so much for your honesty. I know you've been dragged into this by your dad. He was one of the first guys part of this group, and I mean, for those who don't know, Justin's an accountant, so it's like hard numbers and facts, and now we like trying to get him all warm and fluffy with these guys, and no, I really respect your honesty, Justin, because a lot of people would have just bullshitted through this, and I'm glad this actually came up, because for those of you, like Ferdy's also an accountant, I've never met Ferdy in person, I don't think. But we understand that some of us are coming, Lee's in the industry, but she's not planning yet. I know Brian although he's super bright, he's new at this. They're newer than a lot of the other guys, and it's really intimidating when you see these questions and you think, gee whiz, how am I going to ask these people these things? And they're not difficult to answer. They're difficult to ask questions. So and Justin, you know what you guys, those of you who battle with this, I mean, what you got to do is look at the list, and you just got to start with something that you comfortable with. So like, what's your first memory of money? That's like, yes, there's no ways I can't ask that. But you can word that differently. You could say like, how was money growing up? Because that's like, well, that's okay. We grew up in a house where, you know, either my dad was a doctor or he worked on the railways. There's no right or wrong. It's what it is. But you get people talking. And I think the whole idea about the questions, we've got to be careful, is not to make potential clients uncomfortable. It's to get them comfortable and to get them talking openly and freely. And, you know, what we find a lot of the time is that you ask one or two questions, and before you can put the other ones up, like the conversation just carries on. The clients take over and they talk. And that is what we're trying to get them to do. We're trying to get them to be comfortable, you know, and speak. So, but, you know, you've got to be brave to go down this road. I mean, most of us avoided it for a long time because we weren't comfortable with it. But I think, you know, and that's the challenge, is to stretch, you know, to get out of our comfort zone and to just start asking these questions, and it'll lead. I'll share, I had a meeting yesterday with potential new clients on the links. And, you know, that initial engagement meeting is normally an hour. 3 hours later, I was like dragging myself out of there because I'd already missed another meeting and I had to get to this other meeting. These guys, just the husband and wife, were talking over each other, and it was after 45 minutes, I'd asked one question and I still had to go through a whole lot of stuff. So, I mean, and in the end, they like said, geez, I can't believe we shared all this with you. We shared too much. We shouldn't have said this. So I said, don't worry, we'll go through even more in the next meeting, you know. But, you know, they came to us because they're in a particular situation. They're scared of repeating what they've done in the past, and they needed to make sure that they don't make those mistakes again. But Justin, really, thanks for your honesty, and with Courtney as well. I'm assuming she's sitting next to you. We'd actually rather look at her than look at you, Justin.
That's probably a better idea
for future reference. But yeah, I mean, you guys then agree amongst yourselves, you know, what are pretty easy to ask questions that you're comfortable with, and just start with that. And I promise you, it will flow. And the process that you guys use, you know, although Alex, Ben, Chapis, or myself might ask these things in different ways, it's all going to end up in the same place. But, you know, you've got to ask what you're comfortable with. So anyway, so thanks for that. Ben, picking on you.
Follow that one. Yeah, so as kind of mentioned, Alex has mentioned that we kind of broken our questions into sort of two. There's the initial meeting, and that's all like just trying to get to know the person a bit more, and then in our discovery meeting we go a little bit deeper. And the nice thing about that is that they're a bit more comfortable with you. You've spoken to them a bit, so you can go a bit deeper, I think, in that second meeting. One of my favorite questions, and I always like to ask this at the beginning, and it can be worded different ways. I like to ask, you know, where's home? Or some people might say, where are you from? And it sometimes gets you in trouble. So yeah, I like that. I like the question, where's home? Because people like to talk about themselves, and it's a very easy question to start. And they'll say, oh, you know, I'm originally from here, my dad was from there, and this and that. And then it's very easy to ask a follow-up question. So, so what did your dad do? Or like Dirk mentioned earlier, so what was money like when you grew up? And then they start talking. And I think that's a great sort of icebreaker to get into the person. And it's not just to make conversation. I think it's very important when we're asking these questions, is we're asking with a purpose as well. We're not just asking for the sake of it. And I think we've got to understand where they've come from. I think, like Simon said earlier, you know, because they might become from a conservative family and then they save everything because that's what they've learned when they grew up, or they've become the opposite and they saw, you know, their parents save so much and now they spend all their money. And so you need to understand this about them and their psychology around a bit of the money or how they view money, to help them to go forward. So I think that's a really great first question to really get to know people. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. And we all know that you work specifically a lot with doctors. Is there anything that you've worked out or discovered that is unique to them that you would ask?
I would not. I'm trying to think. I think I'd just use a lot of their. It wouldn't be a specific question. I'd kind of stick to our framework, but I would then throw in a lot of different analogies and things. So, for example, if after we've done the discovery meeting, the goal setting, and I'd need to get the information, from them. I say, just like you need to do a diagnosis first before you can prescribe a medication, we also need to do a bit of a diagnosis. So we need to get the information from you so that we can then, analyze it and then help with a prescription. So I try and throw out like related to medicine, what we're doing, but in a different if that making an analogy through it. And then in the email, just follow up and say, I'm doing this and looking at that. Before I used to kind of even names of my meetings, I would name them, sort of medically. So I'd say, family history or medical history, because they all do a medical history with their patients before they, the first thing they ask you, like, is asthma in the family? Is it this? Is it that? Like the first thing they do with any patient is get a medical history. So I'd call, a meeting medical history. And then so that they would know kind of what they're going to be talking about is like their past and those kind of things. So like those little small things, just personalize it a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because again, that's meeting the client where they are, which is important. And you just jog my memory. One thing I read in that book by Ben Carson is he talks about naming your process. So like, and it's actually quite a good idea, because I mean, we also kind of looking, we've named our meetings, coffee chat, initial engagement, goal setting, and it's like, they're changing. So we need to like really look at changing the names of those meetings. Like, I'm going to buy a car, go on holiday. It's not really a goal, is it? It's more, it's like what we do, it's how we live. So, but I think, in each of your businesses, I mean, if you're able to kind of personalize your process or your meetings, I think that's a great idea, especially if you're targeting a specific niche market. Thanks, Ben. Brian?
Sorry. I had one client as well who, when we had like follow-up meetings, she said, I can't remember how it came up, but she said like she called those meetings money matter meetings, because her money matters. So every time then I booked a meeting with her, I called that meeting money matters. So in her diary, she saw money matters, and then so again, and then I thought, oh, that's cool. Let me use it with everybody else. So then I also named those follow-up meetings, or instead of a catch-up, we can just call it money matters. So they're like, hey, I need to be serious about my money and those kind of things. So I think you can also learn a lot from your clients. You don't have to think about everything yourself.
Yeah. No, thanks, Ben. Great point. Brian.
Cool, thanks. I actually learned a lot from my financial planner, and you talk about naming your processes or the stages that you go through. So she did that, and I hadn't seen that before. But then since going through all the training I've gone through on LFP over the last couple of years, it really is, like you said, it's about personalizing it, and it's very the financial experience is generally very dehumanizing. So I've spent a lot of time to try and humanize it a bit, and that is why through these sessions where we ask these questions with the clients. Yesterday was an hour session with a client. He's single, and I only got through 3 questions, and I have a lot more to go. So he's paying me, and he's paying for that time, and it's going to take probably four meetings to get to the end of me understanding him and me understanding where he wants to get to in life. because a lot of people love talking about themselves, and when you ask some good questions and you open up a can of worms, they can carry on for quite a while. But what I found is that they give you so much information that you would never have gotten before with some sort of a tick box approach, that it adds value to your planning. You know what motivates and inspires them. So we have two kind of scripts, so to speak. The first one, like I think almost all of you have mentioned before, is what we do call the initial meeting. That is just to find out from the client if we should work together, if we can add value, if this is going to be beneficial for all the parties concerned. And that's where we ask questions like, what's on their mind, why they're here today. We ask questions about what concerns they have about resolving the problem. What's their experience trying to fix the problem before, and then also what exactly do they want? Where exactly do they believe we can add value? So we try and get them to define for us, give us our job description effectively, and without there being any sort of doubt at the end of the day, because at the end of that meeting we will summarize what we believe is we've heard, and we repeat it back to them, and they will agree and say yes, that's spot on. Then we know exactly what they're about and what they're looking for. Then we would contract with them, engage with them, and if they want to go further, then what I would call the discovery process starts, where we start understanding more about them. So that meetings, that process we call defining the purpose. And the reason I called it that is because I found before I moved into doing more financial planning, I found that we were spending a lot of time defining the numbers, but I didn't know what the numbers were there, what they meant. It's all contextual. So, money flows from here to there wherever it's needed. So we need to understand where money should be flowing. And then when we get to financials, we can see where money is flowing. And then we can see what that gap is and work with the client to try and close that gap. So to define the purpose is literally just to ask them a lot of these questions that I think Alex and Ben have already mentioned. Asking them, like a question I got from Ben is where is home? A question I got from Carl Richards is asking them to talk about their beginnings, like how they started in whatever profession they are. And then I will ask them, so how did you get from there to here? That question yesterday, this Italian guy, South African now, that was a 45-minute answer, but I learned so much about him, and I learned that he doesn't take bullshit. He hates corporate. He hates big brands. So much I learned about him in 45 minutes, and at the end of the call, my diagnostic tool said I spoke for 8% of the time. So that means that I think I did a good job in just asking questions and opening up a can of worms. And there was a lot of answers I got from just that question, because you're basically asking for their history. We asked the questions as well. How was money when you're growing up? That is a Dirk/Carl Richards question. So thanks, Dirk, for that. And then also, what is important about money to you? That is a question that I've left a lot of people kind of umming and ahhing a bit, but it's a question I was asked, and I didn't actually know how to answer it the first time I was asked that. Because what it does is basically the client, when you ask them what is important about money to you, they tell you what they want to do with their money. Some clients are afraid of being poor because they grew up extremely poor. So what's important about it is that I don't end up like my parents. And so that's maybe a financial behavioral issue you might have to deal with later on. Red flag there. Not a red flag, but it's something to consider. So it's a way for me to understand why they want to earn money, why they are working so hard, why they are, or if they're not working so hard, and if they don't have too much, then it leads me to understand why. Oh, they're just happy to every weekend go to Saldanha and go fishing, and that's just life for them, and that's cool, and that's all they want. What is really cool for me is once I get through that, it's about 5 or 6 questions where it's just finding out a bit more about their background. I start getting into goals, but I had a problem trying to get clients to define their goals, because it's difficult, because no one, I think, really knows exactly where they want to get to, or at least they can't articulate it. So I was doing research on the XY network about 2 years ago. I think I shared it with Ben at the time. I was doing research on scripts that a lot of those guys, those Australian advisors, they share their scripts as well. And when it came to the goal setting, this one advisor, he would break it into categories. So there would be family, there would be retirement, there would be your money, there would be your lifestyle, your home, your career, your health, your business, all these different things. And now this is not for every client. So some clients, some of that doesn't matter. But the way he asks the question is, for instance, family. What is important to your family? So instead of asking, tell me about your family, whatever, it's like, what is important to your family? So you immediately you get down to what motivates them, what are their values? And so if a client might struggle with that question, you can prompt them about, are their children on the horizon? Do you value having, is education important to you? And do you want all of your children to go to the best universities and so on? And then the next question would be like your money. What do you want to achieve financially? And once again, that is a very broad question. I found that people answer that one way or another. So they'll say, oh, well, I want to buy a house and I want to pay it off in 5 years and I want to do this. Other people say, I just don't want to worry. And that's their answer. I just don't want to worry about money. So once again, it's kind of a vague question in a sense, but it helps me understand where that person's mind immediately goes to. So I know when I work with them, maybe what needs I need to immediately address. Then another question, which is quite interesting, which is the last one I'll share with you, because there's so many, but it's about health. And obviously we have to ask a lot about health because we need to understand, is this person maybe adequately covered for any sort of conditions? So this chap's way of asking about health is he just says, what is important to you about your health and your well-being? And that's it. And that was also very interesting for me because then a lot of people immediately, sometimes they list everything that's wrong with them. And I get like a whole list of conditions, but it's cool because I need to know that. And then if they're on a weak hospital plan, that's a concern. But also they'll talk about, actually, I'm on a weight loss journey and I'm struggling. And then I know their mindset, they're in this position where and a lot of people have said that to me. I say a lot, probably about 50% of the people have said, I'm on a self-improvement mission. And now I know why they're speaking to me, which they didn't tell me in the first meeting. They're on a self-improvement mission. So they've obviously turned over a leaf. Maybe they read a book or something. And now they're deciding to improve themselves and they're doing their health improvement at the same time as their financial well-being. It gives me insights into the person as well and about what makes them tick. These meetings, like I said, for a couple, it can sometimes carry on for quite a bit because there's two answers, unless there's like a real dominant speaker in the family. But generally, there's normally two answers. So this could be anywhere. The one client was 45 minutes. It's an IT guy, and he just told me exactly what I needed, like 1-word, 2-word answers. And sometimes it's been 5.5 hours of 3 to 4 meetings that I've been able to get this wrapped up. Only then, after this meeting, will I request from them, I'll start requesting all of their financials. And then obviously once I know so much about this, I can then start understanding the financials a bit better because I can see where it's going. And then it's very easy to see if their money is aligned with their values, or if it's or if what they told me doesn't necessarily correlate with what I see financially. So that's me.
That's great, Brian. Thanks, man. Thanks. Okay, I think we've chatted to most people who are client facing. I think one thing that I don't know how many of us record meetings. I know we do, and the reason is to be able to go back over and listen and listen for things that we perhaps didn't hear, because when you're involved in a conversation, it's very difficult especially if there's one in a meeting. So we try and have 2 people in every meeting, but even then it's not easy to be taking notes while you're involved in a conversation and you're listening and you're keeping eye contact with a client. Now, a lot of people will say, well, So yeah, we should be telling clients that we're going to be doing this. But in a lot of the podcasts I've listened to recently with guys like Bill Bacharach and really big guys, they all record these meetings, and all it is positioning with the clients to say, well, you know, we're doing this so that, you know, sometimes you listen to something a second time, we can hear what we missed or whatever. And obviously we need to assure them of confidentiality. But I think that's something that, and it's quite easy. You can download an app on your phone and that'll do the job. Another thing that is really important as well is trying to have, if you're dealing with a couple, is trying to have them both in these meetings, because, you know, clients are coming and when they're dealing with one of us, the meeting's going very differently to what they expected, very differently in most cases to what they've ever had with any other advisor before, because there normally the focus has been about products and money, and now it's completely different. And often, I think a lot of us have experienced where clients will leave a meeting and say, wow, that was great, but completely different to what I expected. And it's very difficult if you've only got one of the partnership there, and then they've got to go home and try and explain to their spouse or their partner, like we spoke about all this stuff. And in fact, it could actually lead that person to having a bit of conflict back home. It's like, why did you tell them this, or why did you tell them that? So I think it's really important to, where we can, get both into the relationship. And then the next thing also that I picked up in a lot of these things is, and Mitch Anthony and Paul Armson mention it specifically in the book that they wrote together, where they actually state that we've got to be very careful not to go too deep too soon. I think a lot of us are scared that these questions, we're going to go places and we don't know how to deal there. And, you know, I think, you know, if it goes there and the client's comfortable, that we go there. But we've also got to be careful of going in too deep too soon. And, you know, ideally the way, and that's why in our business, we've tried to say, okay, let's build like a 3-year roadmap instead of just a onboarding process and then a review, but let's try and build a 3-year roadmap where we actually, you know, depending on how intimate the client will get, how quickly, we will eventually cover all these things. So it's not, that's a little bit more flexible and not fixed. So I think it's important to remember that, not to go too deep too soon. I'm actually looking at Ferdy and Lee. I haven't asked you guys. Lee, are you client facing at all at the moment?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
But not in the individual space. I'm, you know, on the institutional side. So I'm client facing with my trustee boards. But then I do quite a lot of member engagements as well.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's straight away when Russell spoke about sort of humanizing myself. So, you know, definitely something that works is to tell members that, you know, I've also made mistakes. I have, you know, not preserved when I changed the job. Just to, you know, like he said, you know, not have you up there on this pedestal as a guru, just an ordinary person also trying to, you know, make my way through things. So that definitely works. I think in the retirement space, it's quite important to try and drive members to take action and accountability. Members tend to sit in retirement funds and think, well, you know, this is someone else's problem. This is my employer's problem, or the trustee board, and I try to make members understand that, you know, this is your money and it only exists for you. So you need to, you know, take an interest in it and understand it and ask questions about it. And, you know, if you're not happy with the way something is going, you know, make changes, talk about it. But, you know, it's not the individual space. And it is quite a different process, obviously, to what all of you are doing. I've just recently been given the opportunity, which is quite exciting, to get involved in some RBC with one of our big retirement fund clients, and they're doing the RBC, the retirement benefit counselling, but with a slight twist to it, in that we are giving some advice as well. So I'm sitting with a colleague of mine and we started engaging with individuals, but it's very specific because all we're looking at is giving the member advice on what annuity to purchase. So I'm struggling a little with that because, you know, it's not whole financial life. But I've also been brought in to try and, you know, look at the process and look at what this guy's doing and look at how we can improve it. And, you know, there he just goes straight in, balls to the wall, and we start with a budget. You know, he's looking to try and help them maximize income. So we start out with, you know, what are your income and what are your expenses? Let's get those numbers. So that's, you know, real hard. There's no, you know, discovery or getting to know you. But that's, you know, it's a new thing, and that maybe will evolve as we figure out how it's going to work. Certainly one of the things you've just said now, Dirk, that straight away, you know, has struck me is most of the members that we've seen so far are married, and we've only seen the member. I know there've been a couple of husbands and wives lurking in the background. And I, you know, for example, I've said to my colleague, but, you know, what about the spouse's income? Surely we should consider that as well. We're just asking the member what their budget is, but, you know, potentially there are other income sources and other. So, yeah, I mean, it's my first foray into individual, which is quite exciting. And it's on Mutual's salary bill, which is, you know, fantastic as well. And
what is RBC?
Retirement benefit counselling.
Okay.
So, you know, it's not supposed to be an advice offering. It is an offering to members who are at retirement, and it's supposed to be sort of product knowledge. So these are the different types of annuities, and this is what you can pick from. But in this particular instance, the fund has asked us to, you know, give some advice, to actually say to the members, look, these are the different products, and this one would potentially work for you. So it's a little bit different and quite new. We've just started the whole thing. Yeah, sorry.
I think it's potentially very tricky, and they've got to be careful because you know, advice is advice, and to give advice with all the facts is impossible, actually.
Yes.
I mean, I understand what they're trying to do, but I mean that's not your issue. That's because as you say, you know, not having both spouses present and then also not having all the info on the table, like what else they've got. It's for the fund, not for you, but for the fund. You know, and I mean, this is off the subject, but a lot of this, you know, like a lot of the universities now have their own in-house living annuities or fixed annuities and all that. And although I understand there's a place for it, I think the problem with it is that it's coming from an area where people are saying we don't want to pay fees. We don't want to pay advice fees. And the flip side of that is a lot of those people who are getting advice, I mean, I know UCT does this, are, you know, they're certainly probably not going to get the level of advice that they would get from one of our businesses where we go a lot more in depth. So they're not paying for advice, but in reality, they're actually not getting advice either. And in fact, the flip side could be that they could actually be getting advice and making decisions that actually aren't in their best interest in the long run. And that's an industry thing. That's not Old Mutual. That's not you. But it's a really interesting slope. But I think it's come from an area where people are saying brokers are ripping people off. And I must tell you, just before this, I took a call from a friend who's an advocate, and you'll put something on LinkedIn, but a mate of his, 19-year-old father, went to Nedbank.
19-year-old father.
And they put him into a 4-year investment for R1 million. The guy's got 150,000 Rand in his current account, cost him 15,000 Rand a month to live in his retirement home. He's just had a stroke and they can't access the funds. Now, I mean, that's the kind of, that goes on in our industry, which is absolutely, it's mind-blowing. It is. Yeah. And I know we would all believe that. But while the industry does things like that, and I think that terrible behavior is forcing the kind of behavior where people are saying, we don't want to deal with advisors because they're all crooks. And our, you know, part of our mission in this group is to get more people to do a proper job. I mean, when
I
we
think-
hear stories like that, we just shake our heads because it makes us look terrible.
I think that's part of the fund's motivation behind this is, so, you know, first of all, they've worked with us for years. And as you know, Dirk, we're out of, you know, the Access stable. So we've come from an advice background, not a product background. And I think that's what the fund is wanting to achieve is, you know, there are members who cannot afford the fees that businesses like yours charge. And what they're saying is, but these members should still be entitled to get, you know, good advice and advice that is right for them. And they shouldn't be left to just be sold product that isn't suitable. So we're trying to sort of find a space. The fund is paying for the advice. We're trying to find a space where we are still able to give these members, you know, something decent. But it's not a full advice. So like I said, we're in it and we're trying to sort of wrap our heads around, well, okay, but how do you give some advice about some stuff, but not the whole? But it's certainly coming from a very, what's the word, altruistic point of view. Yes, there is built-in default stuff, but the advice is not, you know, just go there. The advice is, let's look at what will be best suited for you, but we're only looking at it from your annuity. For a lot of people also in the fund, though, this is their only source of saving. You know, there is nothing else. So at least let's take this chunk of money and try and give you some advice around it so that you don't end up stuck in some shitty product for. So yeah, it's interesting. It's new. I mean, I literally have been involved in it for like a month. But it's also, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I mean, I'm still sitting, you know, in the institutional team being paid a, you know, corporate salary, and Mutual are saying to me, here, go get some private, you know, planning experience on our ticket and dime. So I'm, you know, pretty chuffed about that.
Look,
and then
I think it's a huge opportunity for you to learn, Lee, but I think there's more opportunity you should explore, because when you say they can't afford us, they don't even know what we charge. And I would turn that around and say that they actually can't afford not to afford us. Seriously, because, you know, we retire many clients. You know, we've got clients who retired with less than R1 million. We've got clients who retired with over 30 million rand. You know, a business like ours deals with various people. So, you know, for a corporate to say they can't afford to deal with us, they actually don't know what they're talking about. And I think therein lies an opportunity for yourself to go back to these guys and say, you know what, we can actually do this in-house. And I mean, this is in our business, we all get paid salaries, you know, so it's got to start somewhere. And I mean, God, the corporate world is where it should start. Instead of employing youngsters out of varsity, giving them targets, bankrupting them and sending them out to go sell cars, they should be bringing those guys in with more experienced people like yourself and saying, well, you're going to work for a salary in a corporate institution, but you're going to give proper advice. Yes. I think there's a massive opportunity there.
No, we certainly are. I mean, both my colleague and I are salaried. You know, we don't earn. So at the moment, they're looking to get us onto Xplan. I mean, never seen Xplan, don't know how it works. I believe it's a planning software tool. And you know, they were flummoxed because we don't have codes. And we're like, well, we don't need codes. We don't, like, we're not earning commission on anything. We're, you know, so yeah. So personally, though, I am still working. I'm in conversation with a planner up in Salt Rock, also X-Axis, so also out of advice space. And I still am, you know, my personal ambition is still to be out of Old Mutual by the end of the year and joining him properly in the personal financial planning space.
Right. Okay. If you need any advice, give us a shout. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Who you join is very important as well.
I shall. I'm sure you know him well. And I shall chat to you about that offline. Thank you.
Okay, great. Ferdy, I know that you are, sorry, and I'm sorry that I omitted you initially, but I know that you are client facing as well. Do you want to share with us how it's going there and questions that you've been using?
Yeah, so I have been facing a few clients, new clients and current clients, and all of them different. So I'm glad to hear that I'm on the right track, hearing that I asked the kind of questions that you guys asking. So that's really good for me. So I can't really add a lot of value what questions I'm asking, because I'm asking like the same type of questions. One or two that's have been working well for me is in that initial discovery meeting, like a question like what brings you in will work well, but otherwise it would be like what keeps you awake at night, what is concerning you, what's the problems that you're facing at the moment. And yeah, and also the one where have you had a past financial planner? What was the experience with that, with them, and what role do you want me to play? So I haven't really gotten much further than those two with my conversations, because yeah, it takes all of the time. But yeah, if they are really analytical like myself, I'll just give one sentence answer. Then I go a bit deeper with to see if we can work together and clarify that vision of yours, what you want to do, and can we work together if it's the right fit for both of us. And yeah, when I get to that stage, I'll ask a few other questions like the financial secure, imagine your financial secure type of question. What would you do with your money, and how would your life look like, and all of that thing. So yeah, it's different for all of my clients, and with the existing ones, it's kind of a funny type of conversation, because I haven't worked with them getting them on board. So now they are already here and all their products and everything in here. But now I get to go back to them, and now I get to ask them these questions about why is that there? Why are you working so hard? Yeah, all of those things. Almost like the discovery questions, but they never get asked to them. So it's a good experience for them as well to share on those things while they are current clients with us. The one that I'm not comfortable with is the understanding their money history type of questions. Yeah, because I haven't had the experience where I know what to do with the answers that they give me. So yeah, I'll rather point them to the Hadida type of questionnaire, and then I have like answers about their personality and how they think about things and how they operate. So I'll rather do that because it's more comfortable for me to use. Yeah, so that's my story.
Yeah, thanks, Ferdy. I'm glad to hear that it's going well. I think there's no right or wrong questions really, and I think those ones you're uncomfortable with. A lot of what you can do is like when someone says something, is just say, well, like tell me a little bit more about that or whatever. And you can gauge whether they want to go on or they don't want to go on. But I think also just asking like rehashing a question, like when they come up with an answer, so like, what does that mean to you, or how do you think that's affected you, or whatever. But I think we all got to do this at our pace, and the reality is that if you're asking clients questions that they've never been asked before, so you are changing, especially with existing clients. You kind of changing the conversation from what they've been used to now moving in a new direction, and you'll probably find that some clients will move a lot more swiftly than some clients want to head that route a lot easier than others. So, but good that you are asking. Sorry, Frank, you got your hand up. Sorry, Brian, you had your hand up earlier on when we were chatting to Lee. Sorry, man.
Yeah, benefit counselling. You were talking about it and the merits of it, but it's actually it legally has to be done anyway. So there's an audit trail for retirement benefit counselling. So we have to do it for the retirement funds. We've been doing it for about 15 years anyway, but it's now a legal requirement. And generally, you have to legally as well position the in-fund options because they are normally cheaper from a product level. And what we'll do for some of those people 5 years out or so on from retirement is we'll just, at that point, I don't give them advice anyway because they're not my client directly. Although I am an advisor, but when you're an RBC, you're playing I'm wearing a different hat. So I can't give just advice to a retail client in an EB space. So how it works is you just kind of will do projections for them, just simple kind of like calculations with any sort of online calculator or something. You just kind of give them an idea of where they're headed to, and we tell them to go back to their advisor and speak to them about that, take that, and prompt the conversation. But like you say, most of them don't have an advisor. So I know that it's also generally utilized as a tool, a very handy tool for life companies to make sure that the money stays within the group. So even our clients, we can't stop Sanlam or Old Mutual when we're their funds from, if we're the benefit consultants or we are the benefit consultants, we can't stop their RBCs will obviously contact our clients, but it's our EB clients, but it's fine because a lot of that business, we can't have all the clients and we don't need all the clients, but it's a legislated thing. But I think that it's going to be interesting to see how it develops over time, because it's still relatively new. And I think SUF as well, Sanlam Umbrella Fund, are also doing a lot of work in that space because they got a deep vested interest in it. So it'll be interesting to see at what stage they start crossing the line into advice, because I think it's so. You're right there. People coming.
Well,
they have
that's
to literally see-
exactly
they have to
that's
see you, yeah.
exactly the thing is that so it's it's super fund, it's the umbrella, and we crossing the line into advice, and we're trying to sort of work out, okay, how does this work, and how does this work, properly? How does it work for the benefit of the client?
Yeah, and it's difficult for someone like an advisor to be told you can't be an advisor now. So it's a very difficult hat to wear as well, I find, when I'm having the conversation with the clients, but with the fund members. I call them a client. But so it's an interesting space.
Yeah, it's just funny that something that's meant to be for the benefit of the client actually doesn't go all the way, because it's not. And the reason it doesn't is because it's all about everyone looking after their own interests. They're worried about the advisor earning a fee, and the company rather wants to keep the assets with them. And somewhere in between, they're saying this is for the benefit of the client, and it's legal now. So it's, like, this is where corporate and everyone just gets mixed up. And I think, personally, this is where there's a massive opportunity for life companies who, if they really, really want to be honest, is employ financial planners, pay them a salary, and allow them to give proper advice. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Every big fund should have had fixed financial advisors who were salaried linked to it. There are a lot of advisors out there who love giving advice, but aren't hunters. They don't want to run their own business, and for various reasons. And I just think it's something the industry is missing completely. Anyway, Frank.
Certainly, Dirk,
Sorry.
it feels like I have to say in defense, but that's exactly what they're trying to do in this particular instance. Is they're not saying to Martin and I, you can't give the client advice. They want us to give the client advice. Martin and I are still just trying to work out, at this stage, he's been doing it for a couple of months, and I've stepped in and seen that all he's focusing on is the annuity. But there's nothing to stop us actually giving whole client advice to these members. That's the thing that we're trying to work out. So I really do believe that Mutual, are doing it and are doing it, unless I'm being naive and all they're, worried about is Martin and I keeping the assets in super fund. But I don't think so. I think they really are trying to find a place in that space, like you say.
Great. Frank?
Ferdi, I'm glad to hear I'm not the only one who speaks foreign very, very nicely. So we both, like that advert that says, "Oh, I love it when you speak foreign." You weet? So ons Afrikaners sal dit kry. Just a quick one on, there was two things I wanted to encourage Ferdi with, but first of all, you're speaking about product providers and financial service providers. I think, we can debate this topic, and everyone's point of argument will come across very strongly because of the belief that we carry. So I think when we do speak about lifestyle financial planning, I want to encourage us, and I know I'm not saying we're not doing it. It's just to focus on what we're doing right and what we believe we're doing right, and we believe how the process should be. But I agree with Dirk is saying, but I also think, we need to focus on and speak about what we believe the right process is, instead of showing fingers. I'm not saying we're doing that, but just that fine line there is to cover that. But Fadi, what I want to just mention to you, you said that some questions you're a little bit scared to ask because, or reluctant to ask, not scared, because you don't know what the answer should be on that, or to give feedback. I think it's very important we don't go in, and I believe all of us are like that. We don't go in with perceived answers and to know it all. We're just asking questions for the client's sake, and for the client to speak, and not to actually answer any questions that we do ask. We don't ask a question to answer it. We actually ask a question to hear, and to let the client speak to us about it. The mistake that I've made in the beginning, and which I still have to fight a lot of times, is to share too much of my own journey to try to connect with the client. Is that because a lot of times we want to, when we ask a question, a client share, we can quickly share about our own journey, trying to connect with the client in a deeper way. But I think we also need to be careful and not to share too much about ourselves, and actually keep the light on the client. So we need to try to find that balance, which I've struggled a lot with in the beginning. So I will take, sometimes we can almost take the conversation over by sharing too much about our own, and we're thinking we're doing good. So yeah, just wanted to encourage you actually about, when you do ask a question, don't even have an answer ready. Just listen and let the client steer that direction, or steer the conversation, I mean, for you, in understanding the client in a better way. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. It's very valid. We're running out of time. June, I know you've got something to add.
I don't, and I'm sorry, I only put on my camera a bit late. I was on holiday for a week and only got back at 9:30 last night, and I've been up since 3 o'clock yesterday morning. So I was afraid I'm going to yawn in front of the camera the whole time. But Dirk, I paid such good attention, so I've got a whole book of notes, and I know these questions, and what I learned from this group all the time is just how you take things and personalize it, and just put it into a structure and a process, because you test it, and you know what works best with your clients. So I really enjoyed it. So I put down the names and what everyone said and stuff that I can take away from this. So maybe just one thing that I can add, and it's also to Fadi's point, because when we initially do the rollouts, a lot of times planners would be a little bit fearful or uncertain to ask the questions, because they don't know what to do with the answers. Exactly what Fadi said. And it is like Frank said, it's actually putting the client on a discovery journey as well. We don't know what the answers are going to be. They don't even know. They've never heard these questions. So it's putting them on a discovery journey about themselves as well. And I think someone mentioned here, so it's just follow up on that. So, how has that impacted your life? How has that impacted your relationship with money? Some coaching questions that we've thought or that we ask quite often, which I like, and maybe it brings into when clients get stuck, because there's always a shortfall. There's always something going on, that holds them back. So whatever that is, whatever they're doing, what does it open up for them? So what does that allow you to do? What does that close down for you? What does that, not allow you to do? So anything that you always do, something is opened up and something is closed down. There's not a right or a wrong. It's always, you're giving up something to do something else. So it's for the client to decide, what is the priority? What is it that I actually want to achieve? So this whole discovery process for me is about the client figuring out who they are and what they want to achieve. And I think with all the questions that I've heard, I'm just like super excited. I thought it was a great session. Dirk, I got a lot of value from this. Yeah, so thanks. That's all I can add.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think one thing, like, not picking on Ferdy, but one thing you've got to remember is that if you, one thing I get guilty of sometimes is not preparing for these meetings, especially a discovery meeting or like a goal setting meeting, preparing yourself actually mentally and emotionally, and sounds crazy, but actually just sitting quietly and thinking about the client if you know something about them already. Because if we are really present in a meeting, if you're really having a proper conversation and you really care, the client's going to feel that. And that is like, that's the biggest thing. You know, if you're just reading questions off a sheet and there's no real connection, clients are going to feel that as well. So I think, yeah, that's it. But guys, thanks for sharing. All of us. I think it's been a great session. I have recorded it, so I'll put it out there. But yeah, remember to send me any ideas for any other areas where you feel you might be battling or want a bit of help, or you think it's important for the group to discuss. And remember that we're open to any new people who perhaps want to join and add value and also learn from us. So thanks for being here, and we'll chat soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Yes, thanks everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Cheers.
Bye.